Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about long-term relationships and what I think is the main killer for those long-term relationships. A quick disclaimer before we start. I'm talking about seemingly good relationships. I'm in no shape or form talking about abusive relationships, unhealthy relationships. If you find yourself in a relationship that is toxic and unhealthy and you're not treated well by your partner, regardless of who you are and who your partner is, you should definitely not stay, because that's not a good situation to be in, just so that is out of the way. These are not the relationships I'm referring to right now. I'm talking about the seemingly good relationships. Something that I definitely noticed in my surroundings or in general is that a lot of people don't break up a long-term relationship because they're per se not happy. They mostly break it off because they think that they could be or should be happier. I'm sure you guys know the saying, the grass is greener on the other side. Basically meaning, if it's not yours, it's always better. And you always long for the things that you do not possess. What is important to know though, is that what you see is only what you're putting in. You don't see your neighbor really putting in the work. You only see the results. You don't see the effort that it takes to maintain something. So if anything, I think this saying is completely false, because it's not the grass that is greener that is on the other side. It's actually the grass that is maintained and cared for that is greener. And that's a very important distinction. You see what you're doing with your grass and you see someone else's result. You see what they're portraying on social media, but you don't actually know how much effort and how much work goes into maintaining that relationship. It's very easy to fall into comparison games where you think that your up and downs, because it reflects real life, is not as great as someone's highlight reel. Especially on social media, that's often the case where people don't tend to share negative things. They prefer to keep it positive. And I think that's okay, but you also should be realistic when you look at other people's output on social media, that they're probably not telling the entire story. Honestly, we live in a world of abundant choices. When your choices used to be limited to the amount of people that you knew in real life, and let's face it, most of us do not know that many people in real life, new modern technology has really upped the game, has really increased our geographical range of the kind of people that we are able to meet. That is, of course, very positive in a lot of aspects, all the upside that the internet has provided us with, but it also really increases our choices. And on the first glance, you would think that's a great thing, because now you have a much more higher likelihood to finding the right person for you. But what it also does is it's also a problem, because studies have repeatedly shown that the more choices you are presented with in a given situation, the higher the level of unhappiness is actually becoming, because you tend to second guess your choices, you tend to doubt your own choices, you tend to doubt yourself, and you always play this what if scenario where you compare your choice that you made to a fictional choice that you could have made. And you ask yourself this question, oh, did I make the right choice? Should I have chosen someone else? Would I have been happier if I did that? And is there even a right choice? And that's something that's really frustrating for a lot of people. Always this comparison to what could have been and what isn't. And that's really, the comparison is the thief of joy. However, the big problem with those choices and the way we perceive them is also that when we compare our scenario to all these alternative realities of all the different choices we could have made, what we tend to do is we only focus on the positive aspects. We never think, oh, I'm so happy that I ended up with my person because the other person was way worse and I was treated horribly and my life went to shambles. No, we don't tend to go there in our imagination. We only tend to imagine the things that we're told that we should strive for, and the things that are shown to us as young as when we were children. The fairy tale endings, the perfect marriage, the perfect wedding, and they lived happily ever after. That's always something that kind of bothered me, the on the lived happily ever after, because it really just shows you that the marriage is the goal point, and after that it's smooth sailing and nothing really happens anymore, when the opposite couldn't be more true. Because in the end, with the wedding, the work starts. It's not really work, but you have to always adjust yourself in a relationship. People change and you have to make certain decisions to stay with your partner. So all those fairy tales really end where real life begins, because it's easy to fall in love. It's easy to be enamored with a person, to be emotionally drawn to a person, to be physically drawn to a person. But it's much harder to actually take a hard look at yourself, take a hard look at your partner and say, yeah, this is the kind of person I want to spend my life with, and it's going to work because we have similar values. Or at least I'm hoping that it's going to work. Because of course there's no certainty ever in life. There is not the person for you. There's not the one out there for you where if you magically meet this person, everything is smooth sailing. You will never have any arguments ever again. You will be happy until you die, super fulfilled. Like, that's just not realistic. And I also don't think that it should be like this, because how tragic would it be to fall in love and there was only one person and something happens, something unforeseeable happens, and you're just doomed to be unhappy and alone. I don't think that's how it works. I think there are potentially a few people, probably quite a lot if you consider the population of the earth, there are probably a lot of people that you somehow would match with. But it's really up to you and your partner to make that relationship work. Honestly, don't wait for the one person who magically is going to sweep you off your feet and to make everything better. Because the odds are it's not going to be like that. And it actually probably shouldn't, because when you grow most is actually when you're challenged. And if it's too smooth sailing, if you're just alike, is that really challenging in a good way? Is it really asking you to become the best possible version you could be? And I think that should be a main goal in your relationship. Okay, so what I've been talking now was basically FOMO, or the fear of missing out. Basically, you made a choice and you always have a feeling of maybe I should have made a different choice. Maybe things would have been better then. So let me tell you now how to deal with that. First, find someone that shares the same values as you. Someone that shares specific values that are very important to you. What are your views on relationships? What are your views on career? What are your views on family, on money? All these things are very important in the long run. And if you can find someone that shares similar views about life, that's more likely to be a good match for you. I know people say opposites attract, but it can create a lot of issues in the long run. Of course, you don't have to be interested in exactly the same things. You can have different hobbies, different interests, but you need to share similar values, because otherwise I think it's going to be very hard to make that work. The second tip, take responsibility, because I think it's very easy to think that if there's a situation in your relationship, it's the other person's fault. But it's never one person's fault only. Most of the time, even if you're not aware of it, you are contributing to the situation. So if you guys are fighting, you're contributing by the way you look at him, the way you don't look at him, the way you speak, or what you don't say, or how you act. And that's natural, because we always interact, we always communicate with each other, even if we don't say a word. So acknowledge how you're interacting in the situation, and also take responsibility for that. Don't just say, if I had a different partner, then I wouldn't have these problems, because you maybe wouldn't have these exact same problems, but you would probably also have problems. And number 3, what I think is very important, is put yourself in their shoes. Try to empathize. What is happening in their life? How are they feeling? Are they stressed about something? Is something bothering them? For example, if I know my partner is very stressed and has a lot of issues right now with his work or with his friends, or a lot of stuff that is stressing him out, the likelihood is maybe going to be that if I on top do something that he doesn't like, that he will probably lash out at me. Which I'm not saying that it's okay, but you can still learn to empathize. Saying, okay, I know this is not really 100% geared towards me. I'm trying to not take it personal, but still I don't think it's very fair of you to. You can still say that, but then also just acknowledge that it's not only you, and he probably lashes out at you because you're the one that he feels safe with. Because that's what we do as humans. We can hurt the people we're closest to the most because we kind of assume that they're going to be there. Where with other people where we're not as close, we probably are scared of the repercussions of losing that person, for example. Of course, that's not an excuse to treat you badly and to leave your anger out at you. Not at all. But I think it's sometimes really helpful to turn the situation around and just try to imagine what is going on with your partner right now. Why are they acting the way that they're acting? And try to approach it also with a sense of curiosity instead of judgment. What's going on with you? Like, how are you feeling? What is bothering you? But not in an inquisitive way, but more just try to be helpful and just try to empathize. And I think sometimes that already helps to de-escalate the situation. The next tip, make sure to have open communications. It's very important to really keep those channels open, that you're able to really talk to your partner about what is bothering you or what is bothering him. Because if you eat up all that frustration, all that anger up into yourself, it's just not going to be very healthy in the long run. Because at some point you're going to just explode, and that's really not what you want to have. Then it's going to be an emotional outburst, either from you or your partner, and a lot of stuff will probably be said that cannot be taken back. So it's always really important to keep those channels open. And also try to approach things in a calm manner, not when you guys are emotional. Take a breather if that's the case, and just say, let's talk about this rationally. Let's talk about this when we both cooled off. And just try to do it without judgment, without this already negative mindset of pre-accusing someone of always doing something, because no one likes to get the feeling that someone else watching them and like taking note, taking score of what they're doing. It's really better if you just approach it with a sense of curiosity. Hey, this and this I've noticed, I would really like to talk about it. How can we solve this? And really focus on the problem solution aspect of the situation. What can you live with? What can he or she live with? And that's really important, because in the end, you're not always going to be agreeing on everything. But if you can find a compromise, and I'm saying a proper compromise where it's actually okay for you and him, and not the kind of compromise where both are unhappy, then I think it's already a really good start. And I think the most important point is definitely reframe your mindset. Instead of looking at it as the fear of missing out, oh my God, what could have been, what kind of life am I not living, what part of my personality am I not experiencing, what kind of relationship could I have, reframe it as the joy of missing out. I'm sure we all know these couples or these people in our life where we think, oh, thank God I'm not in the relationship with this kind of person. And I think in general, what is very important to say is we have our baseline. That's our current relationship. And the problem is that baseline is basically what we use. And it's so easy to take your partner for granted because you're used to it. That's what you get every day. That's known. And I think that's really probably the most important thing, to try not to do that. Try to appreciate your partner in little ways. Try to have open communication. Try to talk about things when they pop up and not only months later, or don't be resentful after fights or about this particular issue that you guys fought about a year ago and you keep bringing it up. It's really better to just be happy that you guys are together and be happy that you're having the joy of missing out all the bad relationships that you've either experienced yourself or that you've seen other people experience, and just be content with what you have. Well, thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, as always, leave your comment below. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.